Today, we want to talk about teaming with other professionals, and we've come up with some tricks to help make the collaboration process easier and more effective. And these tricks are universal. They work within a school, they may work within a hospital, they may work within a law firm. So, we look forward to you listening to the rest of our podcast.
Today we are going to be talking about how to best communicate when teaming with other professionals. We will provide some communication tips to ensure positive interactions with your team to allow for collaboration. One of the best ways to have a positive communication environment with your team is to listen. I know that might seem cliche, but listening is a vital aspect to positive communication. Being able to take your time and really listen to what someone else is saying and why they're saying it can create a very positive communication environment and really helps build a foundation of trust within your team. Some tips that you can use while talking to other professionals are to attend to the person talking. Now, that may seem like that's easy, but a lot of times our minds tend to wander. When you're listening to someone, really try to focus in on what they're saying and why they're saying it. Usually there's a reason behind what they're saying, so being able to fully attend to the person you're having a conversation with is vital. Another tip is to repeat what they said back. This gives a good feedback to make sure that you understood what they're saying, and it also makes them feel comfortable that what they said was being heard. A lot of people like to know that they're being heard and what they're saying, so repeating back what they said ensures that their communication was understood. The last tip is to talk less. I know this can be difficult for some, but allowing others to fully communicate what they're thinking and feeling without having an interruption is so important. Being able to allow an open floor for them to communicate will help them to feel more comfortable expressing their thoughts. If you talk too much, you might miss out on some vital information. And if you miss out on that vital information, you aren't communicating quite as a team. If you talk less, you're able to improve your communication as a team, and everyone feels a little bit more comfortable. Cultural awareness continues to keep me on my toes as I'm slowly learning more and more about different cultures and how that can impact a team dynamic. Cultural competence can play a large role on how strong your team is able to work together. Being able to be aware of your team members' cultures and beliefs, but also being aware of your own prejudices and beliefs will really impact how you're able to collaborate and team with other professionals. Be aware of what you're saying and how it could come across when you're working with other professionals. That can make a huge impact on how people perceive what you're saying. If you're approaching the subject with some prejudices, then it might not be accepted well among your team. So just being aware of what you're saying and how it might impact another person will be very important. Get to know your team members rather than allowing stereotypes to define how you view that team member. I know that it's easy to fall into stereotypes that the culture and world have set, but really kind of breaking down those stereotypes and getting to know your team members on a personal level so you can fully understand how they view the world and what is going on will better help you to be able to communicate in a team setting. And lastly, be open and willing to learn about new cultures and their beliefs and why they believe them. This will really increase positive communication with your team. If you're being closed-minded and not willing to listen to other people's beliefs, then your communication won't get very far. If you're able to be more open-minded and learn about these new cultures and beliefs, your communication will be greatly impacted and you'll be able to really communicate with other professionals in the team setting.
In order to create an effective partnership, openness is essential. Professional growth largely depends upon learning, which means we need to know what we don't know. Feedback is the best way to understand our areas of strength and our areas that need improvement. So when we're inviting feedback, we really need to consider who we're asking. There needs to be a level of mutual trust that they're going to be honest and that we're going to receive their feedback in a gracious manner. We need to think about the shared investment we have, a shared investment in professional growth and a shared investment in our students that we're working with, that we want them to be the best that they can be. We also need to consider communication styles. Do we have similar communication styles with the person we're asking for feedback? Because that is important so we don't misinterpret what they're saying. Another aspect of feedback is guarding our feelings. In most cases, when talking about professional growth, feedback is not a character attack. Instead, it's an opportunity. It's an opportunity for growth. So in the best way that we can, we need to see feedback, all feedback, as a way that we can become the best versions of ourselves in a professional way. Teams need to be a safe space to be honest and vulnerable about successes, challenges in the future. A safe space doesn't have to be a physical place, but it does need to be private and confidential. It needs to have the aura of a physical space, but think of a traveling physical space that travels with the people who are part of the safe space. So when thinking about how to create a safe space, we need to think about honesty. Being real with others makes them feel safe. Makes them feel safe that they too can be real. That they too can bear what's heavy on their heart and bear what they just can't keep inside that they just want to share because they're excited. Also, we need to listen with both ears. And that means being present and focused when listening. Yes, sometimes we do need to multitask, but when someone's telling us something that's important, we need to get off of our phones, our emails, and our other work and focus in and listen, because listening for 5 minutes means way more than listening for 15 minutes distracted. We also need to remember to check in occasionally. Check in about the good, the bad, the uncertain, what they're nervous about. And lastly, we need to be thoughtful. Consider how you would want someone to treat you. Consider how you would want someone to respond to you. And when I think about that, I think about somebody who is kind and who is thoughtful and who sometimes might leave a note on my desk to say that keep trying, keep plugging, that you're going to make headway with this student. And we need to be that kind of teammate, because being that kind of teammate creates a safe space and creates a place where we can all work together in harmony.
Relationships are key. A key factor in a successful collaboration is a positive relationship. There should be positive relationships between everyone on the team, including all professionals and the family. So what makes a positive relationship? Trust is the foundation for any successful collaboration. When there is trust in a relationship, people seek input from others and actually use that input. People who trust each other can also discuss successes and difficulties they encounter and figure out how to learn from them. Mindfulness is also really important in the type of relationship needed for collaborating with other professionals. Everyone must be open to new ideas and encourage others to express their ideas. Relationships that have respect have interactions that are considerate, honest, and tactful. People who respect one another, value each other's opinions, and are willing to change their ideas some to incorporate those of others. Address conflict quickly. Conflict is bound to happen when working with multiple other professionals who all have their own beliefs and opinions, which are likely not all the same. So why is it important to be dealt with quickly? Negative feelings can multiply between the various participants if the conflict is not quickly resolved. Conflict can easily escalate to where there is no communication between anyone, severely limiting anything getting done. And arguments have no positive outcome. So what should you do when there is a conflict? Actively listen to the concerns to grasp the issues that caused the conflicts. Listen before speaking. Set out the facts. Discuss where everyone is coming from and why they feel strongly about what the conflict is about. Select the best alternatives to reach an agreement together and do not force an agreement. Be realistic.
So, another thing to think about when teaming with other professionals is choosing and adapting your behavior. So, as we know, just by in life, different behaviors for different situations. So, you don't act the same way when you're with your friends versus when you're talking to a professor or your boss. So that's something to think about when you're working with other professionals. Our book mentioned proactive versus reactive behavior. So proactive is you're thinking about it beforehand, how you want to act, what you want to say, that sort of thing. Versus reactive, which is when you're changing it based on what's happening and based on the situation that you're in currently. Behavior should be sensitive to the person that you're talking to, should also be sensitive to the topic. Some topics require a more solemn behavior rather than others. And then also sensitive to the goals. What do you want to accomplish from this conversation that you're having with a professional? And I think by keeping those things in mind, the conversation and the outcome is going to be far better. So this last slide is just addressing ethics as kind of the foundation of why we team with other professionals. And by remembering that and kind of keeping that as your basis and foundation, I think that the collaboration process is going to go a lot smoother. So ethics is just defined as moral principles that govern a person's behavior or the conducting of an activity. And so ethics as your foundation can kind of be shown in two ways. So the first is that your message is accurate. You're making sure that you're being understood and that you're presenting it in an understandable way. And so in speech pathology, we kind of address this a lot when we're talking about working with other professionals or even families too, just making sure that, you're not using a ton of jargon and you're not trying to sound like more educated or anything. You are meeting them where they are and providing the information that they need. And then also the second part is that you're committed to the other person, and that is shown by listening to their thoughts and ideas, thinking about their feelings, and making sure that also they're being heard and that they are being valued in this teaming process. Our book just had a great quote that I wanted to throw in here, that ethical commitment is reflected in their steadfast understanding of others as unique human beings. And I think by keeping that, again, just at the foundation of like why we're teaming with other professionals and why we're collaborating, it's going to be a much smoother process. And I think we'll see really great outcomes from that.